Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Salam, hello, peace to you all. Welcome to the program, another edition, episode 7 of Iran versus the Epstein Empire, also known as Axis of Resistance against the Epstein Empire. I'm hearing some sound, actually. Oh, okay.
I think Indi turned a fan on.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Well, so we've got all kinds of things going on, but welcome everyone to the stream. Let's see, what's our title? From Strategic Patience to Strategic Victory, with patience scratched out, totally gone, no more patience. We're all very impatient now, and strategic victory. So we'll probably talk a little bit about how we think things stand. But let me welcome, in this collaborative episode with my friends, colleagues, comrades, the co-hosts of Resistance is Fertile. We have Benji. Benji, it's great to see you. Welcome.
Welcome, guys.
And Indi is here. Indi, great to see you again.
Yeah, tell me if my sound is okay. I got kicked out of my room. Sorry, I'm in a new setup.
You're in a new space, which has a cool globe behind you. So you're ready to pontificate about geopolitics because you can just swirl it around and say, look at this, look at where Iran is. And
It's
so
actually
that's
a
going to be
closet. My wife just put me in a closet.
Not being an EU politician, he can probably place Iran on the map.
I'd say your sound is a little low. You could boost your sound, I think.
Okay, tell me now. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's good. That's great. Okay. And then we said we might have a special mystery guest who actually moonlit in the chat the other day. So we knew we had an in with him. So we thought we would bring him in for one of these episodes where, our regular contributor, Dave Ugubian, taking a little sabbatical, as professors need to do sometimes, from it. And so we have Justin Podur from Anti-Empire Project. Justin, welcome. It's great to see you.
Good to be here. Instead of trolling, I'm on the screen.
Now you're
inside the tent pissing out rather than outside pissing in. That would be the idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, okay, so the crew is here. I thought maybe we would just start, and also welcome to all of you. And I see a lot of people in the chat. It's great to have you with us. Please do remember to like the stream so it gets a little bit of a boost. Share it if you can on social media. If you're watching on X, which you can do on several X accounts, on mine at Adnan A. Hussein, Indi's, Benji's, if you're on those, you can retweet it. Very simple. That's all you have to do. And otherwise, if you're on the YouTube, you can also watch it on Substack. So resistance is fertile.substack.com.
One of the few Substacks that's 100% free. So don't hesitate to also subscribe. We have lots of great content all the time.
Exactly. So subscribe and help boost it and get it to more people. Don't be miserly with a good thing. This is a good thing to get us together. So bring in others. And also, just as a reminder, we have been doing a Ramadan fundraiser for the Samir Project's Ramadan campaign. And last I checked, right before the start of the show, it was at 462,010 British pounds. Their goal for this campaign is 500,000. They've boosted it to 550. They're very confident. So 550, and there's only a few days left. There's 2, maybe 3 days. For some people 3, but 2 days left for most people. So be generous. I've put the link in the chat, and we'll check in with that a little bit later. But to get to the matters at hand, every day it's just there's so much to process, and we've had a few days since the last time we spoke on Saturday. I thought maybe we should go ahead and start with probably the most significant. Well, we'll see how significant we think it is. Obviously, very meaningful and important. The assassination and martyrdom of Ali Larijani, who was the head of the National Security Council, a diplomat, politician, and a scholar, as we've come to learn, a Kant scholar. So this happened. It seemed like he tweeted it just a couple of days. He had a very active X account. In fact, I think last Saturday, I recommended his X account because, in addition, to him providing news and insight from leadership in the Islamic Republic of Iran, he had a good sense of humor and seemed to like the combat and the battle, and seemed to be interpreting a lot of statements, responding to statements by U.S. officials, administration, including Trump, and he would say interesting, funny, and acerbic things. I hate to say that is what, may have, but I feel like he was doing a lot of public diplomacy. One of the last things he did was actually publish a really interesting, we might talk about it, interesting kind of letter to all the Muslim countries. And I feel like in some ways that also may have increased the target upon him. So we might talk about all those things, but I just wondered what you all had to say at the outset about his martyrdom.
Well, this was, like many of the leaders of Iran, a philosopher, soldier. Ali Larijani was a Kant scholar who published a number of essays on the philosophy of mathematics in Kant. And of course, Kant was known for the categorical imperative, the project of eternal peace, and this idea that we should do unto others things that, if they became universal law, that everybody did them, then would be beneficial to the whole of humanity. And in a strange way, I think what the empire has done, as it does every time, is it has pushed the axis of resistance to be less Kantian, let's just say, and maybe more vengeful in a sense. And you mentioned his Twitter account, and on March the 13th, so he was a prime shit poster, regular listeners to our show will know that I believe that because we are all drafted against our will, most often in a 24/7 narrative battle, shitposting on social media is actually a very effective weapon, especially against an empire that's kind of retreated into some kind of solipsistic narcissism in which it only sees its own reflection and its own ego. So everything that punches the ego of white empire is actually weapons grade ammunition in the psychological war. And Ali Larijani himself was a commodore in the what I call the shitposting brigades of the free people of the world. And on March the 13th, he wrote to Pete Hegseth, the alcoholic crusader, Mr. Hegseth, our leaders have been and still are among the people, but your leaders on Epstein's Island. And this really shows the contrast between white empire that has literally devolved into a bunch of, baby bothering, human jerky eating criminals, cod, in my view, cosplaying Satanist, and philosopher soldiers in the shape of the axis of resistance leaders who were all extremely learned people, whether they be Martyr Larijani, Martyr Khamenei, Martyr Said Nasrallah, of course, and Martyr Yahya Sinwar. So I think it's very significant. We should, of course, honor the martyrs, but the way things go is, as you kill martyrs, you just you make the ground of resistance more fertile, and this is the big difference. And by going against the leaders, they are actually making the people rise. And we'll probably talk about, we have already before, the way this popular defense is organized. It makes absolutely no difference on the military front, but this empire has just does always the same stuff. And the good news is Iran won't put out AI videos of leaving Larijani meeting with Tupac. So that's my first impression of what happened. Oh, just one last thing. He said he was amongst the people, and indeed he was killed with his son at his daughter's house. So he really was, throughout his life until the last minute, he stayed amongst the people, which none of the leaders of the axis of Epstein could ever do.
Yeah, the sad fact is that if you're in the resistance, you often get to write your own obituary. So this is something that Larijani wrote off Sri Lanka, when they basically sucker punched an unarmed Navy ship, and they killed I think 80 people, and those bodies were recently repatriated from Sri Lanka to there. And on that occasion he said, the martyrdom of the brave warriors of the Navy of the Islamic Republic in Dana is part of the sacrifices of the valiant nation, which has emerged in this era of struggle against international oppressors. Their memory will always remain in the heart of the Iranian nation, and these martyrdoms will strengthen the foundation of the Islamic Republic Army for years, within the structure of the armed forces. I ask Almighty God for the highest ranks for these dear martyrs. And I think you can ask for the same for Larijani. There's this... You can see, like, let's say Netanyahu is dead or alive. Like, they obviously fear death. They obviously fear martyrdom, and they obviously hide. So you don't see anybody in the highest ranks of empire, in America especially, dying. And there's this saying, like, among the resistance that, like, you love life and we love death. Adnan can correct me, I don't think that's translated quite correctly. It's more that every faith says that there's some afterlife, which is more important than this one. And in Islam, it says this is, like, God will ask you how long you've been here for, and you'll be like, oh, it was a day. It's nothing. Even in Buddhism, in Hinduism, there's this idea of, like, there's a more important life, a higher purpose than this. And some people live for that higher purpose. And their death here is but the passing of a day. And I believe in something bigger than this. And I don't know if I believe in God, but I fear them. And if I was Larijani, I would go to my death with nothing to fear. I think he's lived a good life. He's lived an honorable life, and he died an honorable death.
And if I can just add, one of his last tweets actually was a quote, I believe, from the Holy Quran, where he said, "We will surely give those who are patient their reward according to the best of what they used to do."
Yeah. Sometime in 2023, there was one of these accounts that I followed, one of the pseudonym kind of pro-resistance accounts. I think it was Ibn Riyad. He doesn't post as much now, but he posted like that Batman meme, so Robin has his back to you, and then Batman is slapping Robin, and Robin, out of Robin's mouth, is saying, the resistance should, and then Batman slaps him and says, the resistance knows what to do. Right? and
Benji's favorite meme, I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
I'd forgotten this one. I'm going to go and drag it.
I kind of have to do that to myself, on days like today. I was Batman slapping myself today because I was just like, man, like, they can't go to a bunker. Like, what about a little bit of a bunker? Like a little bit more bunkering, just, and I just, like, I just have to accept, I was talking to one of our friends too, Azad, and it's like, we've just been humbled, so many times now with how they kind of knew how things were going to go. And they made these decisions, and like things that didn't make sense to us. It turns out like Iran, they were negotiating and being, I don't know, like almost submissive, it seemed. And now they're not. And like all the time that they were using. And so it was like, for me, it's like, okay, I was Robin and they were Batman then. And so it must, I have to, I have to kind of think maybe that's the case now. But it's today was a hard day for me that way because of that. So I just called Batman to do that for me. Maybe you guys can be Batman for me today.
Well, we should all be Batman for one another in these times, because it's very easy to second guess, and guessing comes from regretting the loss. I mean, I remember how I felt and I felt even worse, when the supreme leader Ali Khamenei died. I was able to kind of immediately see it within a martyrdom kind of meaning, and think that there could be something positive come out, and very quickly we saw the evidence of that. But when Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah was martyred, that felt like such a blow, because he was a very charismatic and public figure in the resistance media, and the loss of him, he gave me comfort. In fact, even my wife said, well, I always felt when I saw Hassan Nasrallah that I believed that the resistance could never lose, right? That like he just had this charisma, that you had a feeling that victory was at hand. It may not come immediately, but it was inevitable. It would have to happen because of how convincing he was. In this case, what I wonder, I felt a little bit like you did, Justin, in the sense that the big symbolic victory that could come out of it was the supreme leader. That like galvanized and changed the whole atmosphere for the nation and for people around the world. And this one felt like, although it wasn't maybe a big tactical loss, the military clearly is happening. The whole military strategy has been set up, and they don't need these political leaders to really instruct them on how to go about waging this very effective asymmetrical war, and the mosaic defense, and the decentralizing of command. There's autonomy. This is people's war. And so the local commanders are enabled to make these decisions. But I do think that what it means is that some of the diplomatic kind of components of waging, this full spectrum war, information war, diplomatic and political, has lost somebody who clearly was a very effective and respected figure.
I think to honor him would be to do the shit posting that we think he would have done,
carry on his legacy. That's right. Get out there, people, on Twitter. Yeah, on X.
And there's some speculation that Israel killed him specifically to blow up those diplomatic off-ramps to accelerate.
And I don't know. I saw a message from him that said like, we're not making peace until Israel doesn't exist anymore. And maybe that's
all the reformists have been reformed, especially
didn't look like an off ramp guy. That didn't look like your off ramp guy to me.
Well, that's the off ramp. It's happening in the American right. Some of them are ready to go do that too. When you have Robert Kagan, saying, well, yeah, Israel really isn't the greatest ally. It's sort of like South Vietnam was our ally. It's more like we're there to protect them rather than they're helping us in our strategic objective, which is a stunning kind of position. I mean, I have my own thoughts about exactly what's going on there, but my point there is that they can see that a close relationship with Israel, the way in which people are associating this war as on behalf of them and meeting their security interests and strategic objectives and so on, especially on the American right, that means that there are a lot of people who have reevaluated and, might.
Yeah, I saw a comment which I thought was pretty good, which is that Israel has to manipulate all these spectrums of psychological warfare, and Iran just has to manipulate the gas price. And then once the gas price gets, I don't know what the gas prices are in the U.S.
One variable.
Yeah, but once the gas price gets above a certain level, they will cut bait and run on Israel like they cut bait on Vietnam, like on Afghanistan. As Kissinger said, it's dangerous to be America's enemy, but it's fatal to be America's quote-unquote friend.
Yes. I mean, I love that quote. I looked it up, and it wasn't quite exactly what he was saying, but I think
he's saying it's a hypothetical. So he's saying if like what happens to the Vietnamese guy who got killed happens to the next guy, then people would say that. But we're now 60 years in where we've seen that happen like a dozen times. So I don't think it's a hypothetical anymore. I think like Kissinger from hell is approving that quote now.
It's turned into a syllogism at this point, right? Because you've had all the actual data to back it up.
I have a couple of things that I wonder if this reveals, though. Like when I learned that Larijani was at home, like visiting his family, and not in a bunker, I kind of realized, and I heard Morandi on Dialogue Works this morning, and he was saying, like I've seen more destruction than I did in June, but like people are still doing work, like they're going to work, whatever. And I was thinking, like, it kind of tells me that from the Iranian perspective, they're assuming it's going to go long. Like, this is going to go a long time. We're not going to sit in a bunker for 6 months. We're going to live our lives. We're going to die or we're going to live, but we're not going to like treat this as that kind of emergency unless we have to. And so that was interesting because I know that Israel is in this kind of emergency footing and everybody's in the shelters all day and the leaders are clearly hiding. And so like the Iranians are like, yeah, okay, you'll kill one of us, once in a while. And we're gonna go on with this war. One Iranian commander said for 10 years. He was like, we can fight for 10. And if you're saying you can fight for 10 years, you're basically saying you can fight forever. So they're going to so that was one like, just from the way that it unfolded, it kind of told me that's one difference in terms of how the Iranians are thinking about it. The other thing is they do seem to have tried to kill somebody. Like they are openly trying to kill Netanyahu and they're openly trying to kill Israeli leaders. So, and that's also different. And I think that's like, I've always thought that the kind of idea that the Israelis can just assassinate anybody anywhere. Even today there was that spectacle of the dead Netanyahu and the fake ambassador, and he was like, "Look, I have this list," and the ambassador was like, "Oh, I'm glad I'm not on this list. I'm glad you're not going to kill me." Like it's so demented. It's totally demented. But like, the idea that they can just do that and there's nobody like even trying to kill them is kind of weird. It's almost like a devaluing of the lives of everybody except them. And so like it is, I think
it's a devaluing of their lives, right? Because like having them in position kind of makes stuff worse for the Israelis. Like you can say these are losses on the Iranian side. Would Netanyahu be a loss to anybody?
Yeah.
Would Ben-Gvir be a loss? Like,
but I also think it's a very clear sign of, like their mental processes is what I've come to call accusation. Like every accusation is a confession. So when they go after the leaders is because their own system is very top heavy, right?
Yeah.
So what they're telling the resistance is, if you kill our leaders, we won't know what to do anymore. And what we're seeing around Netanyahu over, I slipped, Milikovsky. I swore never to call him his fake name. Milikovsky over the past few days is a sign that we don't know what happened to him. Maybe he had some operation for his prostate. Maybe he was smoked. Maybe they're trying to clone him and, stitch him back together or whatever it is. But clearly there was some fake thing put out. And, is not been at the military council where it's supposed to be, and not a few other, major figures weren't there. So something is happening and they're trying to hide it. Whereas on the other side, and Iran is amazing. If you haven't watched the conversation between Bikram Gale and Elie Duhati, I think, it's beautiful because she's there, and she was there when Ali Khamenei was martyred, and she just told us, what it was like. Everybody went out in the streets. Everybody was crying. Nobody was speaking. Everybody gathered in a place where they could get a wise person recognized in the community to come and talk about what was coming. And you can't kill the leaders of such a you can kill their leaders, but as you kill their leader, it's almost as if you're using their blood as an accelerator to popular unity, to the resistance spirit. I mean, they have managed to unite the younger generation in Iran around lifelong anti-imperialism with the generation of, the 79 revolution and then the 8 years of war against Iraq, a war that was egged on, financed, armed, including with poison gas by the West, and the poison gas, of course, by the Germans, because, Germans will German. And that is something that they can't understand. And they're at the point, and really, I hammer this one on, but it's the point of dialectical inversion. So everything they do, they can't stop themselves from doing, but it has the exact inverse effect. And we have to clean up our Western minds to go, Larijani is gone, he was the one coordinating the defense, and it's a big loss. But maybe it isn't. Maybe this is the way you fight your people's war of today. And it's not just by being a martyr. They have organized, these people have spent the past, I think they said they started in 81, right? When Saddam attacked them, they went, okay, we knew. And the title of today's episode is From Strategic Patience, which many people, and me in my weaker days, thought was an excuse for not rising up to the plate when it was needed. And 4K live stream genocide makes you want to see someone do something, right? But actually they had to wait for this moment on so many levels, military, social level. They had to wait for their enemies to make the mistakes that would gel not just the Iranian nations, but this might actually turn the zombie that was Arab nationalism into a force that will rise and erase completely all traces of colonialism in the region, including all those crazy Sykes-Picot borders that were literally, two guys who knew enough. They probably couldn't place the region on a map, and then they used a ruler from middle school.
I mean, it was like Sykes, right? It was like Sykes-Picot.
The French came in for the ride.
Picot, really? Pico, really?
Pico was
Sykes was famous. I think Sykes liked the Arabs, so they kind of put him in charge. He didn't like the Turks, and he liked the Arabs. And I remember going over that history and reading about Sykes and thinking, my God, if you have an Englishman who likes you, what a horrific fate you're up for.
Well, I think we could say that resistance is fertile and the martyrs fertilize the resistance, so that's one dynamic we've been seeing. But also, I don't think he was that important to the military component. That is it seems well established. And in fact, actually, as Onur D9C put in the chat, he was actually something of a moderate, as India was saying. The reformists have been reformed. This is a reformist administration. Pezeshkian, Araghchi, Larijani, they were identified in the past as being the more moderate wing. They were open to negotiations. They looked westward. They've been educated, they've in the West, and believed that their understanding and knowledge of the West could allow them to communicate in a certain way. And ultimately, they are not the same as people who are perhaps lower down, younger, who have been forged in these experiences now, and are going to be less willing to negotiate, and are not going to be settling, and are seeing victories. And so in some ways, the resistance produces its own leaders. So the loss of some of these leaders are leaders who are from that era of the revolution and the early period of the Islamic Republic, and they've risen to seniority in having these positions, and they've done an amazing job in fighting for Iran's sovereignty. But now we're in the battle, and it's wartime consigliaries are needed now, and they're going to be produced. We may not even know them, because they might be lower level commanders, majors, colonels, etc., and others who will win the authority and credibility from the people when it is time to make some kinds of deals, or confirm negotiations, and so on. It'll be with this new supreme leader and whatever cadre emerges out of the successful victory of this round of resistance, I feel.
And so Justin was talking about his Batman moment. So my son has a Batman toy, and Batman, I think, is the most reactionary superhero. He's basically a billionaire that goes around beating up common criminals and abducting people. So I retold him Batman as a Palestinian whose parents are killed by Israel, and then he starts digging tunnels and caves, and I basically kind of told him Sinwar's story, except as Batman. So that's who my son thinks Batman is. But one of the Batman moments for me is there's this Sheikh Saleh al-Aruri. So he was killed, I think, in Syria, I think in that embassy attack. And one of his quotes is, "Our heroic martyrs, when they are from the leadership and from the first ranks of leadership, they awaken all the ranks of our people to be part of the resistance. This is an indication of sincerity. When the leaders and first ranks come forward to martyrdom, we affirm in a categorical and definitive way that our blood and souls are not greater nor dearer than that of any martyr. We are equal. The martyr that precedes us by one day is better than us. Better than us." So we're asking why was he out marching in the streets with the people? Why was he going and visiting his family? It's because these leaders are with the people. I don't know if this is true or not, but from what I heard from Khamenei was that they asked, "You want to go in a bunker?" And then he asked, "Can you put Tehran in a bunker?" And if the answer is no, then I'm not going. These people are with the people. And to put it maybe in a way that Americans understand, so when I was young, I grew up in the 90s, and I started listening to Nirvana after Kurt Cobain died. And I started listening to Biggie and Tupac after they were killed. And that is, in fact, how I heard about them. So for a lot of people, they will hear about these people through their death. And Nasrallah, I was brokenhearted when he died, but yet I still talk to him almost every day. These people have left bodies of work, and what they're doing lives on. And someone in the comments asked, I hope they had a succession plan. Yeah, they had a succession plan. There's a Photros Resistance, who's you should definitely follow on Telegram, and REJ on Twitter. He said, Iran's administration and command structure is not at risk. Sensitive and commanding positions have up to 7 levels of replacements deputies that can immediately resume work during crisis. And one way to look at this sort of organizationally is that Iran is organizationally built for this, and they get replenishment of the ranks. You get new people. Whereas in the empire, the same horrible people who were involved in wars in the 80s have only failed upwards. Yes. Robert Kagan at this point is like Jabba the Hutt. He's just sitting there war, eating worms. No one has replenished the ranks, so they just have the dumbest people rising up. And my wife was asking strategically, why would they do this? I'm like, well, within that environment, if you say something like this might be stupid, you get kicked out. And if you go along with every stupid idea, you get only rewarded. So, like, these martyrdoms replenish the ranks of the resistance. And the fact that the empire offers nobody to martyrdom just makes, like, their ranks retarded.
Yeah, it's a case of like security and military officials and university administrators, the people who get rewarded for being failures. The two special pools of labor, I would say. Yeah.
Like, I think there's the funny thing with democracy, and democracy is just a word. It's a stupid bullshit word, but
I call it democracy TM because they've trademarked one. Because.
Yeah, exactly. But when this war kind of started, I have this feeling like I know the Americans can't beat Iran, and I know that the Israelis can't beat them. Come on, but Iran can beat Iran, right? Like, the only people that can beat Iran are Iran, and when you think about, like, if all their leaders were in bunkers, you have a free society. Like, it's hard for people to believe, but you have a free society where people can say what they want, where they believe in their leaders and each other, and they see their leaders have a higher death rate than the average person. And so that means they're real leaders. That means they're people you want to follow, as opposed to people who are safe in a bunker, which you can have if you're not a democracy, like the Western countries, where they can hide in a bunker because it's some kind of royalty, oligarchy, aristocracy, or whatever it is, because they don't actually depend on the support of the people in these efforts. And one other thing about patience, because I might not get I still have 15 minutes, but just in case I don't get to say this, like, when you think about, like, what they were waiting for, I think the January 8th, 9th events, the riots, and the fact that it was only in January of this year that Iran finally wound up the intelligence network that the Israelis, the extensive network of assassins and spies that the Israelis had inside Iran. And if that had not happened, if they had not succeeded in that, this war would not look like it's looking now. It would not be as successful as it is now. If you think about what it was like in June, how brutal that first half day was. I mean, still, it was only a half day, but still, it was the counterintelligence effort, and which again depended on popular support, people reporting on these spies and reporting that people are suspicious, and doing things. And that's what made this success in this war possible that they've had. And it's also what's made, I believe that's what made October 7th possible, was Yahya Sinwar's specific mastery of counterintelligence on the Israelis. So I just, if when you think about, like, what were they waiting for, it's this kind of thing. It's this kind of thing that you can't see until it blows up like it did in January, and then they roll it up. And then that gives them vastly new abilities to do things.
Yes. And White Empire is closing down all its own escape hatches, right? Which is like the strategic brilliance of the moment. It's actually pushing them into a corner, and I don't see this ending anywhere other than Al-Quds. Actually, it can't end before there. They won't let it end. The one point about leaders and cost that I think is very important: if you want to lead the people, if you want to speak up, you have to accept there will be costs. A very good, now a friend, I hope, Justin said, we have to give to Gaza until it hurts, right? We use it in our countdown now because there is a cost. There is a cost to being a free person of the world. There is a cost to being a moral person. There is in a world which is run by a bunch of, once again, baby bothering, human jerky eating cod satanists. There is a cost, and we must feel it inside each and every one of us that we are willing to pay this cost, whatever that cost could be. And also societies like Iran, like China, Russia to an extent, it's a bit more complex, are extremely meritocratic societies, right? So if you kill the leaders, you water, you give fertilizer to the resistance, but also the people underneath are extremely competent themselves. So you're not going to weaken the actual competence of society. If anything, you renew it. Whereas in the West, the costs have already been paid. They've been paid in doing all those, the only people who rise to the top are the corruptible ones that have already been corrupted, so that you have enough on them that you're basically always holding them with a gun to their head, right? And they have to do things, they have very little wiggle room, or a big scandal happens to them. So they've already paid the cost, they've already paid their dues to Satan, if you want, and they live in constant fear, but they're not leaders. I mean, maybe Netanyahu, maybe Milikovsky is a leader of sorts, but the others are just a bunch of bozos and clowns, and we all know they don't make the actual decisions, right? So you have this constant role. You could actually replace them, but at the same time, because the empire is so solipsistic, it's so racist that it can't admit that their leaders could be killed. It's the same way that they can't admit, it's like they're all savages and their primitive arrows can't actually hurt us, right? And they get into this really weird mind space where they believe that admitting that your planes fall off the sky, that your most expensive flagship carrier can catch fire and you get 600 beds burned out of a fire in the laundry room.
It was too much lint.
That that all this stuff happens just out of technical malfunction is somehow less humiliating than saying we got smoke. But to them it is, because the savages are so inhuman that they can't actually hurt you. It's literally I think I played it before, but it's the Monty Python scene, tis but a flesh wound, come back, you coward, and all the rest of it. And that is what is going to lose them. And I think the strategic brilliance of all those great thinkers was to actually get that, which, by the way, the Chinese Sun Tzu scholars as they are, don't seem to have completely understood how depraved, stupid, and solipsistically supremacist the opposition is.
I want to so you were talking about how they can't conceive of basically savage generals. This is a quote from Clausewitz. So I think Clausewitz is good to read, but he's still a European. And he said, "We will never find a savage who is a truly great commander, and very rarely one who would be considered a military genius, since this requires a degree of intellectual powers beyond anything that a primitive people can develop." So he's saying not only at the time of, I think this is the mid-1800s, but he's saying basically forever, these people will never produce generals.
And they have not moved an inch. They still believe this, all of them.
Yeah, all the Epstein emails are full of race IQ, race IQ, IQ race, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and they're trying to make themselves in a vat. But you can see that's sort of their weakness. And I think Iran, look, they've tried talking to these guys, and they figured out the only way they learn is if you physically kick them out. And so they are producing great generals. Soleimani was a great general. The commanders they have on the field now, whose names we'll find out soon, these are great generals. This is a fantastic strategy, which is pushing... what I say is this is a strategic defeat for empire in the way they haven't experienced before. It's not like Vietnam or Afghanistan where they get kicked out of land. They're getting kicked out of the sea. The Fifth Fleet base is gone, and the Fifth Fleet is hiding behind Oman, and like the laundry has joined the resistance. So this is a huge, huge like epoch shifting thing. And just to connect it back to sort of maybe costs, right? I think a lot of this Western propaganda is for Western audiences who are, as of yet, somewhat divorced from the costs of what's going on.
Yes.
So you don't need to tell, like, so they keep saying, oh, we destroyed 90% of missiles, 100% of missiles, 110% of missiles. Tell that to someone in UAE. You know, a friend of a friend came in on a flight through Dubai before they completely shut it down, and they said there were 2 fighter jets on each side of the plane. And that would not make me feel more comfortable, you know? So that person does not need to be propagandized to say there's no danger, everything's fine, like the sheik is your daddy and going to take care of you. Like that doesn't work on those people. And for the people within occupied Palestine, they know that Hezbollah is hitting them. Hezbollah is hitting 160 kilometers deep. You don't need to propagandize those people. And I'll extend it to say within Sri Lanka and within India and within Bangladesh, we don't need to be propagandized that the empire is losing. The imperial trade routes have already broken down for us. So Sri Lanka right now, we've declared Wednesday a holiday. I was in all Wednesdays are a holiday now. And we have rations for fuel. And then in India, they're not able to make dosa, which is like catastrophic. And then as in natural gas is running out. So we know that the people that we humiliated ourselves for in order to be part of this petrodollar trade route system, we know that system is breaking down. And something like death is something you can't spin, right? So something like Ali Larijani being killed, you know that he died honorably. They can lie about him all you want, but you see what's going on. And so the propaganda right now is deployed against Western audiences, and it's just a timing difference before the costs that have already hit Asia or hit them.
Well, you know, one other component of this is also related to what you were saying about the kind of racist presumptions that are involved. It reminds me this war and what its consequences can be remind me a little bit of what happened to colonialism during World War II, where in Asia, you know, nationalists in Indonesia said, you know, we saw, and also in India, we saw how frightened the British were of the Japanese. And it opened up in our imagination that this construct that they had created, and that, as you know, our minds had also been colonized as well, and we looked up to these people and thought, yes, they are dominating us because they are superior. Well, then the Japanese came and caused so much fear and anxiety and absolutely tore through them that it opened up this kind of possibility for resistance from us. We could conceive that we could, you know, throw off colonialism. And so what I wonder is also here, on the grand stage in this era, as much as they may try and propagandize, hide the losses that they're suffering, de-emphasize the strategic brilliance of Iran's tactics and the effectiveness of it, around the world, people are seeing. And the question is might this be a moment that, maybe not immediately, but it gives people greater confidence that they too can rise up against the empire. And we might see in coming years a much more comprehensive collapse, not just because it collapses from the inside, but also that theaters of resistance open up because people have been emboldened by the rending of this Western superiority myth, which we know was already shifting with China's rise. But you know, we're seeing it in a kind of more visceral sort of way on the battlefield, which is also what World War II did.
Yeah, like I don't know if you guys watch like Colonel McGregor, but Colonel McGregor will say things like, well, you know, we're going to have to retreat to our hemisphere and we can do whatever we want in our own hemisphere. But you know, it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know if Iran, you know, if things continue this way, I think that's going to be a huge logistical, like it's a vampire that gains their strength from draining the wealth of the world. If you lose this huge, the fundamental, you know, well of wealth that you're sucking, you're not going to have the same strength in our hemisphere that you had before. So I'm not so sure that this, like, it's just gonna, you're just gonna become, they're just gonna have this wonderful life as a regional hegemon either. It could be more like becoming a country like any other country, which is what, you know, China and Russia, you know, and Iran say that that's what they want. They just want everybody to be the same. They don't want empires. They don't want foreign bases. They don't want, you know, value transfer. They don't necessarily use that exact terminology, but you know, it'll be that kind of world. And I just wanted to say, you know, one last thing, probably because I gotta go. But like about the title of today, like strategic patience to strategic victory. I think it's like, again, to Batman slap myself one last time before I go. Like it is worth remembering or retaining now and marking now, because it is early in the war. But on March 17th, there's a whole lot that Iran has left undestroyed. A whole lot that Iran could have destroyed already. You know, they've said this so many times. You know, Morandi said it this morning. He was just like, you know, we could destroy all the oil infrastructure. We could actually close the strait. We haven't closed it. But, you know, but then that's bad for everybody. And we don't want to do something that's bad for everybody. We want them to get the message just from showing that we can. But it's, you know, if it's, you know, if they don't, then it is going to get more destructive because Iran has no choice. So I hope, yeah, the sooner the West can come to their senses, the less destructive this process has to be.
That is the bottom line, it seems to me, is will they finally learn a lesson soon enough for it to be of value to the rest of the world, you know?
Yes, but it will not be the lesson that will save them, because not only are they non-agreement capable, as Lavrov said, non-negotiation capable, as maybe Larijani said, but they are not taking yes for an answer capable, and they are not stopping capable. And the point you made about, you know, I call him Colonel Blimp McGregor, let's retreat to our hemisphere and do what we want with the savages down there, makes no sense, because this is a world system. It's a totalizing political economy, and it cannot work the way, you know, in an autarkic fashion, the way the Soviet Union and the socialist sphere did for a while, and not so well. I mean, if you retreat to South America and you cut off China, what are you going to do exactly, right? And I think, you know, when we think about what are the two legs of this latest incarnation, and I believe last incarnation of 500 years of white empire, they are control of international finance, being the petrodollar, very linked to the energy, these fossil energies that they are doing everything to prop up, actually, as China is trying to develop renewable energy. And the other side of it is the violence. And violence is a narrative tool. Violence is a tool of psychological warfare. It's something you do to bend people to your will when you deny them the fundamental human quality of self-determination and sovereignty. And if you look at those two pillars, they're gone. They're goners. I mean, you know, I've known about the military one since I read Bernie Curmudgeon, Martianov's Losing Military Supremacy in 2017. That was before he spoke on the internet, so you could take him more seriously, but no, very serious book. And when you look at the other one, the finance, there was, I sent you, Justin, this guy, I don't know who is, something Gorbachev, so I'd never seen him before, but he made this point that I found very perceptive. He said, the petrodollar is dead. The yuan prices the barrel. The Chinese get all they want, and they pay in yuan. And by the way, all of the Saudi oil is also paid in yuan these days. The allies called Tehran, and the IRGC is running intelligent and complete control. The system that priced oil in dollars and US military support, I'm adding to the tweet, for 50 years, prices oil in permissions now. The actual price of your barrel of oil is the permission from Iran to let your tanker pass the strait. Like, it's what made Modi, I mean, fascists are stupid at the end of that. It's what made Modi learn Farsi in 3 days flat, right? And now he's tweeting fluently in Farsi.
Yeah.
Because he's paying the price, is actually paying his due. The price of the barrel is permission from Iran. And this is why everybody's on the telephone to Iran. And wasn't Larijani talking about, oh no, Arakshi, his telephone call with Macron, and Justin said, why don't you guys just publish the DMs like normal denizens of the internet, right?
Like grown-ups, yeah.
Like grown-ups. But you see, the money machine doesn't work anymore. It's finished. They can print it, but you can't buy the permissions with it anymore. Yeah. And you're really in that, what was this Chief Seattle situation, in which, yes, you can print, all suitcases of dollars to pay your foreign legion of the alphabet soup of head shoppers with, but you can't eat the stuff. You can't run your Toyota pickup trucks, for head shopping, rent a head shopping DoorDash with the bills and the thing. So it's gone because and also you have to remember that all those satrapies, all their money is in US accounts. And we know that the US, overnight can just say, oh no, all your money belongs to us, all your gold belongs to us. They did it to Iran, they did it to Venezuela, to the Venezuelan gold. So it's all, disappearing in their hands in a puff of white smoke, meaning maybe the new Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that the price of oil will be set by like the one criterion of, are you trying to kill Iranians or not? Are you participating in killing Iranians?
And I can tell you from Sri Lanka, there's a new sheriff in town. So
it's back to the tyranny of geography.
Yeah, like we had a oil crisis before, which is when the U.S. basically like lowered our financial ratings, and then like everything collapsed. So they were able to financialize stuff here. They were able to do whatever in Nepal, Pakistan. Now people aren't really talking about the U.S. Everybody's talking about Iran. That's the new sheriff. So our foreign minister is not talking to the U.S. and even in India, which is naturally not always. Under Manmohan Singh, they were even through sanctions. They traded with Iran and they were friendly with Iran. But Modi is not naturally friendly to Iran, and Modi would love to be like kissing some Israeli boot. But even he is tweeting in Persian now. I can tell you from down here, things have changed. We've always taken terms, and we always oriented ourselves in terms of the West, and people are reorienting fast. I think Adnan was talking about like, will this embolden other resistance movements? I don't know. It seems to be emboldening Modi to like join some sort of resistance, and he doesn't have a resistant bone in his body. Like people go where the energy is. And I can tell you what's happening here. Like you talk about what's going to happen to America. I don't think the United States of America will exist by 2030, 2035. But they're nearing the end of their sort of, right now, Trump's saying, oh, we have our own energy. We're doing great out of this. Yeah, you guys are like fracking stuff and like pouring methane out of your water pipes in order to like get the last, it's like a junkie tapping the last vein in their toes. Like there is some stuff there, but that's the last vein. And so their shale oil production is going to go down. And then their trucks require like 50 liters of petrol to go to like the grocery store. So they're going to have some internal problems. And Iran has said, imposed, so for a long time there was like sort of like an immoral gate on the Strait of Hormuz. There was this thing that as long as you were immoral you can get through, but Iran can't get through. And now Iran is saying, no, we're going to put a moral gate on this. If you're moral, then you can get through, and if you're immoral, then sorry, you're on fire. And I'm telling you, down from like this side of the Indian Ocean, everybody's getting in line.
And we're talking about unbelievable amounts of money. I'll leave you guys on that, but like, the glitz, the glamour, the wealth of the Gulf is because everything can only get out through that one little thing. It turns out.
And the air corridor. So Emirates alone, I think, is losing $1 million an hour. Yeah, at least.
It's
all their money in the US bank account.
I might show, depending on how much longer you go, I might show back up as a troll. We'll see.
Okay, great.
Oh, so that's motivation to stay for another 2 hours or something.
Okay, guys.
So
Bye.
someone
Bye,
said
everybody.
something smart on here. It's just him.
Actually, excuse me for 1 second. I never checked if my children woke up. I'll be back in 1 second.
Yeah,
Okay.
problem. We're down to 2.
We're down to 2, and I don't know about you, but I'm
We might get
certainly not the smartest, the sharpest knife in the
that's
drawer.
great.
But
This is,
anyway.
we'll get reinforcements back in a
Yeah.
moment. But yeah, well, I guess I just wanted to see, well, where do we want to go from here? There's a lot of other interesting issues to take up. I was just looking.
I wanted to,
Go ahead.
So a strategic victory, and
Right.
and the point that I want to emphasize, the point that Indi made, because I'm just all white, and but you, Adnan and Justin, although you come from the
don't be
global
white, man. You can just be Montrealer or something. Just choose
you
something.
come from the global south, and you also, Indi, you were kind of educated to be spiritually white, let's put it that way. And it's very easy for us to keep that, global north perspective. And the way you just presented, how the cookie is crumbling in the global majority countries, and Sri Lanka is not the canary in the coal mine, but it's actually a really good case, because it's not like dominant, and it's really, it has to be very careful as to which way the wind blows, because any breeze can actually make everybody catch a really bad cold. You said that there is now a national holiday every Wednesday because of the impact of this on the energy situation in Sri Lanka. So it's very serious. It's happening. It's of course going to be very costly, especially to folks in the global south. But we are seeing now, the shape of the strategic victory of the axis of resistance. And when there's a strategic victory, there is a strategic defeat. And, it literally, the Twitter is beautiful, these days. Like someone said, Trump asked China for help before Iran did. Right? Many of us have been going, yeah, Iran should help. China should help Iran and everything, but it's actually Trump going cap in hand to China and say, "Look, you want the oil going to the street, don't you?" But also, you have to realize that for the Zionist entity, they have gone from 15 minutes warning to barely 30 seconds. Yeah. They are now getting deliveries with no alerts, no alarms. So those people, Justin mentioned it, but those people are living in bunkers because, they can't face up to what they're doing. They can only do war behind a video screen and inside a bunker. They have no idea what they're doing. And you're already seeing videos of Zionists completely losing it. I've been in a bunker for 3 days. What about my internet connection and being able to do my, TikToks and all the rest of it on the beach? And that is extremely important. And if you want to see the shape of the strategic defeat, like they went from one day, this is a one-day operation, to, it will be won, not in one day, but in a week, to lately send help. And you listen to Trump. I generally only look at him with the sound off, but today I made an exception and I turned the sound on. And the guy said, "Well, our allies didn't help us when we needed that. Not that we needed the help, actually, but, it would have been nice if they gave us help and all the rest." And he said these crazy things like, they did lots of things that they weren't supposed to do. They weren't supposed to throw bombs at all these other Gulf countries. They weren't supposed to do that. Nobody expected that. No expert could have predicted that. Morandi has been on 25 channels a day, repeating this solidly for at least the past 12 months, as far as I can remember. Right?
Yeah, I feel bad for him. He's talking to the biggest idiots, yeah.
Khamenei said, I think, was it February the 1st? If there is a war, it will be a regional war. Nobody, And it's really like this Millennium Challenge exercise that David reminded us of. In 2002, the biggest, most expensive war game ever, the Blues trying to smash the Reds, meaning Iran, and they put this retired lieutenant general in charge of the Reds who does unconventional tactics and actually beats the Reds in a day and a half. And then they stop the game and they go, no, we'll change the rules and start again. And instead of going, maybe we should rethink a little bit our, military tactics here. Maybe learning at the teeth of the defeated Nazis who, only know blitzkrieg and nothing else wasn't such a good idea when you're fighting people who know how to fight. No. And you hear it in Trump. He said, they did things they weren't supposed to do. They were not supposed to do. And ChatGPT didn't tell you that the Iranians were going to do that. You know why? Because the Zionists have been flooding ChatGPT with ridiculous content about the strength of the US and the Zionists, and the 4 serious PhD theses on the fact that this was very likely to happen got drowned in the noise picked up by those pattern aggregators that are so-called artificial intelligence. Well, they are as artificial as the morals of one Donald J. Trump.
Yeah, Trump was saying like we beat them. Like, why haven't they opened the Strait of Hormuz? It's like, okay. They're really
losers aren't supposed to do that.
Yeah,
they're really flying by their instruments. Like they're like, my instruments say that they have this many missiles and we took this many out, so we're down to 20. And it's like, bro, like they make missiles. That's like going to a bakery at the end of the day and saying, they're out of bread. It's like, no, like come in the morning.
yeah. Well, that's another component of it, is that the U.S. military develops its target bank from what it knows, and its idea of target banks are, observable military infrastructure, radar, anti-missile batteries, etc. And then, hospitals and, schools and so on. And it starts with, a mix of these things, as we know, since the first day was, included a school with 168 young girls being killed. But, then they report back up the chain. We've hit these many hundreds of targets. We've destroyed these many, missiles and missile battery stations and so on. And what it reminds me of is, the not understanding what is your strategic objective and aligning your tactics and your methods to achieve them, because they didn't necessarily know what the strategic goal would be. They had the fantasy that eliminating the supreme leader would lead to so-called regime collapse and so forth. So they don't know how to go about this in a constructive military way. And so what it reminds me so much of is in Vietnam, the VC counts. Like, they didn't know what to do. They were like, well, kill Viet Cong. And so then they ended up developing all kinds of reports that, ended up totaling like multiple times the total population, of the entire enemy country. And it's because there's an incentive to report, we hit these targets, we hit that, we've hit so many. And so then they report to Trump, and because he gets this report, we've run out of targets, we've just destroyed all these ships, we've hit all this, that he then thinks, of course we must have won. And it's this kind of self-fulfilling bubble that they're in. And so he can't understand why it is that they're not. In fact, it led him to start making these, what must be painful comments of admitting that the Iranians, they're pretty smart people, because, everything that he knew about them has now been destroyed. So they must be a little bit smarter than he was led to believe. I mean, it's
that's why I don't follow Trump that much anymore. Like, they're not in control. They're not dictating terms anymore. Like, Iran is in control in terms of so I think Aragachi, I'm pronouncing that Sri Lankan way, sorry, but like Aragachi and like all I think Ghalibaf, who's the parliament speaker, they've all come out and said like, no ceasefire. This is not like, it's almost like, listen to US statements, it's like it's kind of amusing, it's like comedic relief, but they're not in control of the situation anymore. Iran
And-
has like a steady escalation ladder, and they're climbing it.
Yeah, and to be fair, the level of popular mobilization in Iran, and tonight people were out in the street in their millions again, but with an extra edge of vengefulness, I think, because of the martyrdom of Ali Larijani, right? And the population won't let them go for a ceasefire. It's not like in June, the June war was, especially in the cities, look, we've almost reached, Western level, and we have WhatsApp, and we're watching the imperialist TV channels in Farsi, and please leave us alone, and this is kind of inconvenient. But now it's not this at all. Now I think the whole population is like, we need to get these devils out of this place. Like, there is absolutely no other way to go about it. So that's a very important point. There was another one I wanted to make and that I lost. So I'll probably interrupt you later when it.
Well, I think it was
comes back
Adnan,
to
or
me.
was it Justin, who's talking about kind of contrasting, like there's a people's war on the Iranian side, and they had to sort of. So I think, as sad as it is, they couldn't have done this for Palestine. They couldn't have mobilized the population to this degree for Palestine, but they can mobilize the population this much for Iran. So because they sort of, I mean, a lot of people online were saying, oh, they should, as Americans were assembling, that was when to hit them. But because they hit first, even given the great costs you take, then you are able to stitch your population together in a great, like, popular resistance against what's going on. And now this, of course, goes unreported in the West, but there's, since day one, I think for 16, 17 days now, Iranians have been in the street protesting for the government. And then if you look at Reza Pahlavi's statements, which, I mean, I don't recommend that, but he's saying, oh, my supporters, like, stay out of the streets. But you can't, like Joe Justin was talking about, how they had those saboteur cells who disguise as protesters or who simply spot missile bases and like hit them. But you can't do that anymore because the people are in the streets, stopping any sort of subterfuge. Like, you can't, like, a small cell can't do anything because there's thousands of people in the street protecting their own country.
Yeah. Oh, I remember the thing. It's just a small point. Is about that guy Trump. You can see he's bored of it. Like he said, oh, those guys are high level chess players, high IQ guys. They're the best that rise to the top. And then he said, no, but I want to take Cuba. I'm going to take Cuba. Cuba, and that's like probably the way he used to speak on Epstein's Island, right? I want to take that one. Oh yeah, that one is beautiful. I can actually do anything I want to Cuba. I can do anything, and that's who we have. And by the way, I wouldn't be surprised if I call them Team B, if they were trying to engineer to have Milikovsky and Trump as the fall guys of that misadventure. Like you had the guy, what is he? The guy that resigned today and saying, I'm not going to serve the Zionist entity or whatever, as if, and Team B, basically, brothers and sisters, is, okay, now we can tell you, it was all the Jews' fault. The bad Jews, they've been doing the bad stuff for 2,000 years, 3,000 years. Actually, it was promised to them in the Bible that they would do the bad stuff. So now let's give the bad stuff to them. And we can continue being, the pure white superior race now that we will have cleansed the Jews once more. Don't fall for it. Let's go for the jugular and bring this all white empire genocidal monster down.
Absolutely.
So I play like Axis and Allies, and it's sort of like a World War II war game. And so what Trump he's going to try and get Cuba, right? Some sort of consolation prize. But in Axis and Allies, there's like, so when you're playing, you have to go for the jugular. If you try and like just copy, like, I think there's like South America, right? South America doesn't factor into World War II, but if you can go and get South America easily, but then you just weaken your homeland and it falls apart. Like, he's not going for the jugular, whereas Iran has the Strait of Hormuz. They have the literal jugular of the world economy.
Yeah. And you know what? I'll call it now. If they go for Cuba, they won't